Dr. Gregory Haughton here, three-time Olympic medalist and world champion in track and field. As promised, here is part 2 of the interview with Coach Walcott. After watching this interview, please feel free to share your comments in the comment section. Who is Coach Walcott? Where were you born? And what inspired you, or who inspired you to become a coach?
I'm Reynaldo Walcott, by proper name. And, athletes call me coach like they call almost every other coach. And the high school athletes, they'll probably call me Naldo or something like that, just a short form of Reynaldo. So I was born in Kingston at the Victoria Jubilee Hospital. But I've traveled a lot since then. So I've lived in St. Elizabeth, St. Mary, St. Catherine, and, Kingston, and I'm back in Kingston now. In terms of inspiration, I like to describe myself as a sponge sometimes, because I believe I can learn so much from so many different persons, even if I don't eventually become what those persons who inspired me are like, but I still do believe I can learn a lot. So there are a lot, there have been a lot. So if I should pick up where track and field started, it would definitely be at STETS, St. Elizabeth Technical High School, STETS for short. So I was in a class where a lot of students did sports, not just track and field, but sports overall. And at STETS, they did not, what's the term you use? So I was in like 7A and it went to 7D or something like that. But they did not group the students. They would just place you randomly once you got accepted to high school. So even though I was in A, it wasn't any more brilliant or better than 7D or whatever. So it was just by chance that those students were in my class, most of them. Mm-hmm. Just, sometimes when it's time for sports day, it just seems like all the athletes are in a particular house and you complain and say it's unfair, but it's just the luck of the draw. So I was there and, I would see them go out for practice and, they would come back and talk about, their sporting ventures when they go to matches or track meets. And, I got interested from that perspective. And, I would just walk up and down with them. Matter of fact, when I was leaving STETS, I was actually staying in the dorm and I did not do a thing in terms of sports. But I was supported by friends. And so the gentleman who was there at the time, and he's still there now, he retired as the VP. But, when I met him first, he was the HOD for the math department and the track and field head coach, Mr. Elliman Smith. So I don't know how it happened, but he eventually just facilitated me being there around with the team, even though I didn't know my left foot from my right foot. But, looking back, he is a person, along with his wife, who is now deceased, who seems to have the ability to see the best potential in persons and just nurture them at their own expense. So, that's what I eventually realized, that that's how he is, and he married, the person we married was similar to him. So, some way, somehow, he facilitated me being there, benefiting from, what the sports kid would benefit from. And, I wasn't really contributing much, but he eventually found a way to focus my energies and my efforts. I remember when I was in 5th form, I was going out with him to scout students, to get interested students to attend STETS, and also go to the different PE classes to try and find talent. And I remember even in lower 6 with a white shirt on, I was on the field, coaching. I didn't know what to do or how to do it, but I just copied him. But he was more so of a facilitative type of person, where the first time he even asked me to assist somebody with hurdles, I was like, I don't know what to do, so what should I do? He was like, look at it this way. I don't have the time to do it, so the person is going to be over there by themselves. So if you are there, even if you don't know what to do, it must be better off than if they are there by themselves. So some things people can't teach you in the classroom, you'll have to just figure it out.
And that is so true.
So when I went there, luckily the young lady, she was mother. She was understanding, and she was happy to have somebody there to see her, because she sort of understood what to do already. So she pretty much helped me to coach her, because she was like, all right, I'm going to go over the hurdles, so look out for this, look out for that. And then I'll be like, okay, based on what you want, you are either like this or you're not like it, so you need to do this more. So that's where that started. So yes, as far as inspiration, those were the early inspiration, track and field wise, is concerned. And then as a result of that involvement with him, I would started paying attention to the sport just more closely than just a casual fan. So I started keeping scrapbooks, and I would cut the newspaper out and glue it in, because we used to do art and craft back then, and there used to be just these big books that we used to use. So I would go, cut the newspaper out, this glue and paste it in, and then I'd probably put my own notes on them.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if ever these people come to the National Stadium and I'm there, I'm going to bring all the books and each person have to sign the page that they are on. But some persons were there multiple times, but that was the intention I had. And then if they did like a really special shoot, sometimes you get a cover page, I would put that on cardboard and then I hang that in my room. That would be my decoration in my room. While, other people will have picture frame. That's my picture frames.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember one time, the roof started leaking and one of them got spoiled. So I was so mad that I eventually started wrapping them in plastic wrap as well while having beer. So I think looking back, it probably was an obsession to be honest. And I remember Homewood was doing well as a school at the time, Homewood Technical. And Edinali was also doing well, but they kept losing. I had no trouble with Homewood, but I found myself supporting or cheering on Edinali just because they were the underdog and they wore blue.
Mm-hmm.
Blue was my favorite color.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular young lady, the same age group as I was, who I just, was, she probably took my breath away in terms of how I thought she looked. So he just kept me, supporting that team. So I would definitely say, from a distance, the Edinali team would have also, been somewhat of an inspiration where, Homewood is doing well, they're winning, and, Edwin just felt like a team that just kept trying despite, they were just still losing.
Mm-hmm.
So they seemed like a fight. And I mean, I wouldn't have known how Homewood got their success because I was still young. But what I saw, different people see the same thing and have different perspective. What I saw was like, all right, Homewood, you're winning, and that's fine, no worries. But I like this team because they're fighting and they keep trying. So there goes that. So, Mr. Smith and I, we are really, really close now because I eventually became head coach at State. And despite I was a head coach, I still never felt like the head coach because everything I still discuss with him, whether he wants to hear it or not, he has to clear his time a lot of times or his table just to make space for me wanting to talk for guidance, because at the end of the day, experience does teach us wisdom.
And definitely. And that has to do with trust. When you trust a person, you're not afraid to seek them out to be better.
Right. And like, I knew he was facilitative then, but he just kept becoming more present as things got, as time progressed. Because when it was time to leave high school, I did well academically, but I was naive. Because I probably did well for the wrong reasons. But guess what? I think it was still good that I knew, for whatever the reason, that I needed to do well. So when I said I was naive, so I got all my CXC subjects, but I didn't apply for college. So, while other kids who didn't pass everything, they did apply. They just didn't get through. So that's how I ended up even going to lower six. When I ended lower six, I applied for college and I got through, but I didn't figure out how I was going to fund college. And looking back, and I'm like, sometimes your journey is just your journey and your experience, because had I been more aware, I don't want to say I wouldn't have wasted certain years, but I probably could have stepped forward in a different way. But again, experience does teach us wisdom. So when I'm leaving high school for college, I applied for UTech, and then I also applied for GC Foster. Got through for both of them, did the physical at GC Foster. And then I remember I was thinking, if I could just be somewhere where the people who are running on TV are training, then I could continue to learn. And I remember he was telling me that, but you can't be concerned about that alone. You can't just go to the college as a result of who they have in terms of athletes competing. You need to be serious about what you're studying. And I'm like, guess what? If I'm happy, I can study anything and I still pass because, whatever I'm studying, unless it's track and field, is not going to be that much interesting to me anyways. So, I'm fine. So I was like, guess what? Cheesy Foster is a sports college, so I'm going to go there. Did the physical, and I remember like a week after doing the physical, Bridget Foster came on TV, and like this JIS program, so they were doing her, and they interviewed a staff poet, but I didn't know much of him yet, because I left Fit Farm in 2004, and of course he had gone to the 2003 World Champs, but that was just a staff on TV, not a staff in person. So saw them on the program, and then she mentioned that she works out at UTEC. And I'm like, what? But UTEC doesn't have an established sports program that was advertised in their booklet. So I went up to the college and I found out, whether this is true or not. And then I had realized so that Sharika Williams, who is in the same year group as I was, when I went to lower six, she went on to UTEC directly. So, we were close friends, and she was telling me that, yes, that's where she's at and stuff. So, right away now, I'm like, all right, it's not going to be GC Foster anymore.
So that's how you end up at UTEC.
Right, that's how I end up at UTEC. So I was like, okay, cool. At least UTEC have what I want to study, and I'll just pick up track and field as I go along. So, that's why I ended up at UTEC.
Okay.
So I went up, matter of fact, I went from the summer. And I asked for the coach. I met Paul Francis, and I went inside his office, and he was like, "No, I was saying to him, I am practicing coaching, and I want to learn some more, want to get some experience and stuff like that." And he was like, "Well, we really don't have a mentorship program like that, but if you are a student at UTEC, all students are free to join any team that they want once they abide by the rules of the team." And I'm like, yeah, but I don't really want to run. I don't want to be training. He's like, guess what? I'm showing you an opportunity. It just depends on how you see it. He didn't need to say anything more. I left his office. I went downtown. I figure, we might have audience who are not Jamaicans, but downtown will be like the place where you can get most things at its cheapest price, even if it's the same product. So I went downtown and I bought 5 shorts and 5 shirts, and I was going to be exercising. I was going to be training in September. It was August at the time. And then I came back to Half a Tree at the sports store, and I bought a Puma shoes. I never forgot. It cost $4,500. And I put them down all summer. And then from that day, I would, because I was in Kingston at the time, staying in Dwayne Park, so I would literally run maybe like a 5K every single morning, and I hadn't run before. But when I say run, I mean run walk, really. But it was like a dedication. I decided, hey, I can't be going up to train with professionals and just be looking horrible. So I was like, if it's even some fitness, I have to get that in. So I did that every morning until school started. So yeah, so when I was at UTEC, Paul Francis, Mr. his older brother Stephen, and I pretty much was welcome there. I trained for that first year, and it was not nice, I swear. But I cherish the experience because it does allow me to relate to the athletes far better because I have the memory of what it felt like to train.
And that makes sense because I was going to ask you the affiliation, but you explain it keenly as to how you actually had the connection with the Francis brothers.
Right, after the first year of training, I went to Sofrano, that's what we call him, and I was like, so I spent a year, and I thought I looked my best physically during that year because I remember, this is so childish, but like probably by December, I remember I went out to Papine Square and I went into the store and I bought a muscle shirt because I got so slim. Slim enough, and I was feeling confident physically that I could put on a muscle shirt and walk up and down and and feel good. I'm like, damn, this is what being fit feels like. So I remember I was going to country St. Elizabeth at the time, and I put on my muscle shirt and I went down because I have this new body. But all of that is superficial. I mean, you get over it in a week or two after. So after the first year, I was like, coach, I have no interest in training. I have trained. I really want to be coaching, and and I know I won't get to do that, but could you find something for me to do so I don't have to be training? And he was like, oh yeah, I mean, we have a student manager. You can't be that yet because, you know, there's a process and their person's there, but you could help me out personally, like, you know, come and record practice, help set up the equipment. And I was ecstatic. I was like, yeah, like, this sounds like I'm doing a whole lot of stuff. So even though he didn't see it as much, he was just trying to facilitate me. I would like, yes, finally. Because the trouble I have when I was training, and I can understand where, you know, track and field is an individual sport and it can be selfish. When you're training, you really don't have much time to pay attention to other people. But even though I was just there participating, you can't turn up to track and field training to just participate. You have to sort of be in there. Because, like, I remember I would wake up like 4:30 every morning, hurry and catch the 5 a.m. bus, because practice starts at 5, and the bus would get up there at about 5:20, and I would wear the practice clothes straight to school. So when I got there, I would just drop my bag and get on the field and start warming up. So, and just even your diet, like, you could not eat a lot of food the night before to get up and train the next morning. Your body won't process that. So even without me trying to lose weight or to look better, just by doing the whole routine, you're forced to operate a particular way, whether you realize it or not. And when we practice in the mornings, we would have gym in the afternoon. Again, you can't eat that much in the daytime if you really want to live properly in the afternoon. So, and it forces you to be so organized. Like, I've lived for high school, like a high school kid. He graduated. He didn't do so well in his final year, but, you know, he's now a carpenter. And he came to me and, you know, we were reminiscing about, you know, his final year and what he did wrong. And he was like, Coach, look, I mean, not everybody was going to make it out and be a professional athlete. I cherish my track and field experience so much because all those early mornings, waking up at 4 a.m., no matter what, and, you know, starting practice at 5, still going to school afterwards, returning for technical sessions in the afternoons, this has made me so disciplined that when I'm at work now and I turn up early and people are like, you know, it's hard for them to get up, I'm like, look, man, stop the whining. And he's realizing that it's because of his track and field involvement. He was already wired to get up early, wired to be disciplined, and wired to be strict. Where other people are struggling, he is not. Of course, he will struggle with other stuff in the future, but he's just so grateful that despite not, you know, being a professional athlete or so, he still gained enough from track and field that he does not regret his experience at all.
Did you know that you would start your own track club someday, or did you not vision that?
I did not vision that originally, and I think I'm very guilty of being very modest most times, because, like, I knew early that I had this dream to coach, you know, Olympians, but I wouldn't say it got lost along the way. It's just that thinking of something when you're younger, going to school to study, and that's not what you're studying, you're forcing yourself to be involved. And then when you get to the real world and start to practice, you might lose sight of that. But I think in losing sight of it, I still was cultured to do the work that will eventually lead me there without me sitting thinking that's where I want to go or right away. I remember with those scrapbooks and stuff, you know, I was just thinking I would want to be coaching that. But when I started at UTech, I would leave school 2 days per week, halfway through the day, to go down to States to volunteer to coach. So when UTech ended, I went to States as a teacher and started coaching the team. I got so caught up with the team's performance and the team's score that during that period, at least the first half of that period, I can't honestly say, you know, I was automatically thinking world-class athletes, etc. But, you know, I was still involved with the MVP program because they would bring me over in the summer, you know, because I used to prepare their meals as well because I did food service management. So when they're in Europe, I used to prepare their meals. And, you know, again, the Francis, they would support me, they would facilitate me and allow me to you know, pretty much be an understudy when I was there. So as a result of that, every summer my mind would go and you'd still be dreaming. and you be planning and you want to be the best, but I'm thinking I need to be the best in high school first. I need to accomplish what other persons have done already to eventually even move on to the next step. So that's where my mind was at. But once those results start to come in, you start to think and you're saying to yourself, all right, so you used to have kids running 10.8 and you're happy. Then you have some running 10.6 and you're happy. Then it goes down to 10.4, 10.3, and now you're at 10.1. So when you're at 10.1 now, if you are still ambitious, or if you want to progress, that's natural progression. You're thinking like, no, I want to have somebody to be run 9, but do I want to try and get a high school kid to run 9? So right away you start to have a lot of conflicts of interest where I need to progress as a coach. I need to do what's best for my athletes, just like a doctor, do no harm. You understand me? So at that point, you're like, I need to coach the high schoolers like they're high schoolers, but I need to have practice coaching the adults, so I need to do both, because I can't do one with the other. So there goes that. So as a result of, decent results in the high school system, and my team was never contending for champs, but individually, year in, year out, the athletes would perform as good as anybody else have in the past. So as a result of that, and interestingly enough, right, when I started working at State, I did not think I would place higher champ with a team or anything. So my strategy was, if I could coach people to make the national team, then that would give far more recognition, because I'd never be able to contend for champs. So earlier on in my career at States, I remember at one point we probably had 12 or 13 people on the national team, but we were placing like 9th or 10th at champs. So, because the performances were high, but there was few persons there, and the focus wasn't to get the champs points, it was to try and get them on the Jamaica team, to the Carista Games, to the World Games. And I remember winning the 4 hurdles at the 2013 World Youth Games, where it was Marvin Williams. Matter of fact, he wasn't even the favorite, but King Williams was. But both of them went in with top 10 times. Both of them made the finals with the 2 fastest times. And then when Marvin won, it was like a aha moment. Then I was like, guess what? I know it's not the senior championship, but at the end of the day, on that day, he was the best in the world. So, you start to question yourself, why can't you do the same thing with adults? But how are you going to know? You have to start practicing with some adults. But I was never the one who would. I try not to be selfish. I don't think being selfless is a very natural, so I try not to be selfish. So if persons would ask me their advice, I would give them an advice that doesn't necessarily suit me at the same time. I try to be as objective as I can be. So I would encourage a high school kid to stay back and allow me to coach him back then. Because, if I don't think that's the best thing for you, then it's just not the best thing for you in the capacity as a high school coach.
You said something I'm pretty curious. I was going to ask you this question, but in terms of your philosophy of athletes going to college, and since high school, since you now have a club, one of my things is that the transitioning is very difficult from high school to college and from college to the pro. And you find that in Jamaica now there is a situation where some of the high school athletes are being encouraged to go directly into the pro, giving up the chance of an education. Since you are a coach at a high school and you have to develop that athlete, what is your philosophy in terms of keeping the athlete, you investing in the athlete and give them a chance to become a professional? Or when do you decide it is best to send them overseas or send them to a college in Jamaica and not being a part of your track club?
Alright, so I approach that subject and there's a lot of soul searching, and we can always think we're right and we're not. I've been through that several times, not for this specific topic, but just overall. But how I operate as a person, I do believe you should be free to change your perspective, to change your mind. Say I was wrong, say I was right, and I'll keep being right because I can prove that I'm right. Again, admit that you're wrong and try a different path, take a different course. So having said that, I really do believe that all of this is just an individual choice. I don't think that everybody should go straight to whichever college or the US system, while I don't think everybody should stay in Jamaica or turn pro. It is really an individual choice. And I think, for one, it definitely isn't. It shouldn't really be like the coach's decision alone. It definitely should be the athlete and, their parents and stuff. In Jamaica, to be fair, a lot of the times, the coach becomes like an extended parent in almost all arenas. And this is not to discredit the value of the parents or what the parents have done, not at all. But I'm just trying to describe the relationship that the coaches tend to have with the parents and vice versa. They both, come from a place where they trust each other. I've had, student, just making a singular, who turned pro right away. But at the same time, I've had other persons who are in the same year group who, went off to college because, again, it's just an individual type of thing. So, I mean, without even saying too much, I have a youngster who represented Jamaica really well last year. Did really well for his age group. He's already committed to a college and he's going to do second year one now. Mm-hmm. So it's a case of what persons want. Because I can give you some personal examples. And it's sometimes you are judged based on what persons think you do, but you have to just do what you think is right and until you find out that it is not. If you eventually do find out that it is not right. So I've had a youngster who went to the embassy, got turned down. And he was so devastated that he would not go back to the embassy. I'm also of the opinion that, especially like final year one people, they are young adults. They should be making decisions for themselves and you should be guiding them. But I don't really believe in forcing anybody. I've had kids who would have probably been doing 4 hurdles in second year one. And then by final year one, they're doing 100 meter alone. It doesn't mean I encourage them to do it. I probably discourage them. But if that's what they want to do, strongly and in their final year, that important year, sure, if that's what they want, you hear my advice. If you don't take it, then I'll support you in what you're doing and try to get you to where you want to go, the way how you want to do it. Mm-hmm. But again, it's your thoughts. Just understand that you have responsibility in your hand and you can't say otherwise. Because I also know that if you keep forcing them to do what they don't want to do, regardless of how good you think they are or can be, a lot of times it can just backfire because the effort and interest is just not the same. So he got turned down at the embassy. He did not want to go. I got a sponsor for him to say, hey, this person is willing to sponsor your expenses back to the embassy, etc., etc. And he was so distraught that he was like, no, it wasn't going to work out. And he was like, guess what? I want to stay back with you. I want to train. He did stay back and he trained that year. He became national champion in his event. Went to the World Cup that year. Went to the World Cup that year as a 20-year-old. Came back year 2. I was like, this event not going to work out. There's just not enough competition in Jamaica to facilitate the development that you are going to need. So, again, there are several factors why a person will stay, will not, or will move on. So even though he had improved by 2 seconds in his event, he was still far from being world class, did not doubt that he was going to continue to improve, but it just seems like it was going to be more of an uphill task in comparison to other people who stayed. So I was like, guess what? We're going to drop this event and we're going to do your other event. Luckily for him, he's very talented and he does multiple events. Started doing that. In his first race, he ran a personal best. Then COVID came. So when COVID came now, I was like, this is not looking good. The colleges here were pretty much shutting their doors. And I had to have a strong talk again. I'm like, guess what? You were distraught then. I supported your choice. I have been the one supporting you from then till now. But a world event has happened and changed stuff a whole lot. So I'm talking to you hoping that you may also add what's happening on the outside to your perspective. So I am thinking you need now to actually head off to college because the future is uncertain and you need to be in a situation where you're not depending on anybody, you're depending on yourself. But I'll still be here to support you. Again, you don't have to make that choice. You don't have to decide to listen to what I'm saying, but it would irritate me so much if I was thinking this and didn't present it to you. So, the person eventually took the advice and, went on, got the visa and started school. But the key thing is that they were eligible for school because during that 2 years, I ensure that I did not do anything that would mess up their eligibility or, that person's eligibility. And this is, again, if I, even though I coach a high school team, I try my very best to be as connected to each of the person I coach as best as possible, because guess what? I don't think I am the best coach. I don't think earlier I would become the best coach. I just cannot gamble on that, and I don't know that will ever be true. So I believe personally that the two things that I can do is to try and work harder than anybody else, and just try and know the athlete as best as I can inside out. So therefore, I minimize how much bad decisions I make for them, or in interacting with them. Like I give an example. Who is a coach? So somebody will compare and say, "Well, the athlete has stayed away the hassle and comfort," and because John Doe was willing to put up with the foolishness. That's why he got such result. But John Doe probably didn't put up with the foolishness, because the foolishness probably did not happen when John Doe was in charge of the person. Because for whatever reason, John Doe figured out how to minimize this person doing all their foolishness. But me or you may not have figured that out with this person yet.
Understand. Understand.
But of course, it's not denying that John Doe do a whole lot of foolish, true. But the other person, you think that they were tolerating it, may not be the case. They probably just never had much of it to deal with as a result of how they deal with the person. So like, if I want this kid to go over the hurdle or to run a 300, and they're refusing for whatever the reason, I still have to remember the original aim. I needed them to do this to develop this particular energy system. The aim is not to win the argument with him or to force him to do it, to stamp my authority or my power so that everybody else can see that I'm the one in charge, I'm the boss. No. So if he is refusing or having some objections, I might probably need to leave him alone and probably get it done tomorrow when he's in a better mindset to do it, because I just don't want him to just do it for the sake. Or I might have to make him take more rest than the others, because he may just need more rest than the others, even if the others are able to do it within like a 5-minute rest period. The point is, I am okay with being flexible and being adaptive based on who I'm dealing with.
Understand.
And language which we use is relative to who you're dealing with.
Understand.
So again, back to the original question, I really don't have a blanket perspective on it. It really will come back down to, knowing what your options are, and the parties who are going to be impacted the most, which are the athletes. Try to have persons around them to help them make the best decisions for themselves, and don't ever feel stuck. So what? I mean, the life is not about a single good or bad decision. It's a series of them. So what if you bucket to you, brush yourself off and move on? So what if you turn pro here and never work out? It's not the end of the world. Move on. So what if you thought you should have turned pro when you went to college? Then go to college and find a way to turn pro afterwards.
Well, I now get a better idea as to your philosophy.
I see each athlete as their own individual person and try my very, very best to, appreciate them for that. So come what regards of the results, I want to ensure that me being in charge and being responsible can honestly say I gave this person my all, and that's what guides me. And I think that's what will make the club, stand out or be different from the others. But I'm saying that to say I really don't know, much about the others other than what most people will see on the public front too. So there, as even with where I used to be, I assume that people change and setup change, people progress. So I can only say for myself is that I've had to say no to several persons, and when I say no, it is a case where, hey, guess what? I don't think that I would be able to be the best coach for you. And I won't take you just because I'm stacking on numbers or trying to increase the earnings. No, because at the end of the day, if I can't connect with you, if I am not committed to the task 100%, it won't be done well. And I'm not used to doing stuff half-heartedly or not giving my all. I'm not accustomed to that.
Okay, I have two more questions and then I'll let you go, Coach. In terms of diversity, do you expect in the future, if you're not doing it now, where you will start producing chores and jumpers and or will you specialize in just the sprints? What's your overall aim as the club grows?
Well, first and foremost, I always want to ensure that I take care of what I already have. I mean, if something makes sense for somebody who already have, which is a different direction from where they were, then it's gonna be easier to divert to a different area. But I won't necessarily take on new stuff or additional stuff unless I feel like I am prepared to give it my fullest attention. So, I mean, right now we have long and short sprinters and hurdlers. You know, for a club who is still in its inception, that's like a handful already. So, but I won't say never. I don't know what the future holds or what the structure might become for this club. So, you know, at the end of the day, you want to try and ensure that if you have the capability to give somebody an opportunity, then you do. It could be the opportunity is given to not an athlete but a coach who said, I vision myself doing this, I need some support to do this done. And you know when you become like an investor or a silent partner, you say, hey, guess what? I probably don't have the time to be there with you and hand, but guess what? If you present to me and you show me how you can make it work, then I'll support you. So next thing you know, the club, you know, has another affiliation or extension. So, you know, it can work different ways, but again, I will not try and take on new stuff at the expense of what I already have.
Okay. My final question for you, Coach, is that everywhere I go in Jamaica, it is said that funding has been a major issue that has prevented many athletes, those with talent and those who don't have as much talent, not to get to the next level and stay there in any successful manner. How is your club funded, or do you find that funding is an issue for your club in terms of growth?
Funding is definitely an issue. My club is not big right now, and you know most of the members would have had professional contracts already. So you know at least they were fortunate enough to perform at that level at some point in the past, able to garner that. And then others would have been funded by athletic manager who, you know, decided to make an investment in that person. So at least they have some assistance there, but it's really difficult, it's really tough because, I mean, inflation alone in Jamaica has gone up so much. So even people who would normally want to help, we still find it difficult to help because, you know, they have their own expenses to take care of. So it's definitely a challenge, it's definitely a task. You know, it's not all horrible. I'm sure some of the years have gotten better, like, you know, a couple of years ago when the athletes were offered insurance by J3, which is still active, but that's a positive. So we just hope that as they go by, as I say, Rome wasn't built that day, you know, things can gradually start to, you know, improve and more options become available. COVID came and, like, you know, so the colleges weren't offering scholarships like they used to, so we're hoping that they can bounce back and get back to where they were headed, where you didn't only have one option to go to in terms of athletically to get a scholarship in Jamaica. So we're hoping that other colleges come out and you find a way to bounce back and offer what they used to offer. But it's because the NCAA system, it definitely does underwrite the developmental expenses for potential professionals, whether they be Americans or Jamaicans or Kenyans. It does do that. So, you know, again, everything has its own merits. So it definitely is an issue. Companies are coming on board more. We know what I've observed in terms of other athletes or entities who have gotten endorsements. So, you know, hopefully one will come our way too, and others will also benefit when, you know, see that, you know, progress can be made and, you know, they're just proud of the local Jamaican brand. Because, I mean, Team Jamaica has been doing well for a while. We are doing well now. And a lot of the finalists and the medalists are locally coached and locally trained. So hopefully it will get better.
All right. Appreciate your time, Coach Walcott. I wish you all the best in all you do. And I will definitely be cheering for you in the future.